Welcome to the podcast. This is a space where we tap into our truth, our essence, where we go to the depths within to seek our wounding and find a way to transmute it. These conversations will not only set ourselves up for amazing changes within our lives, but will also allow us to hold space for those around us. I believe that through these conversations, we will start to heal the feminine and tap into our divine essence. And then we will be able to hold space for the divine masculine, calling them up to a greater version of themselves. Let's dive in. Hello, beautiful souls. Coming to you with this edition or episode of the Exponential Alchemy podcast. Today's conversation is a response to something I've seen online. So sometimes my content and curation comes from just something I want to talk about or that's driven within, but often it's a response to something in the world around me, which really drives the energy and drives my focus or gets me thinking. And today was very much that. And I just knew and felt that it had to be shared here. So what I saw that sparked all of this energy within me was part of a post from Dr. Kimberly Rose, who I absolutely love. If you don't follow her on Instagram, check her out. And the end of the carousel, it started with, what happens when you're in conflict with a beloved. And the end of the carousel says, conflict feels scary, but it can be a portal to intimacy. I'll give that to you again. Conflict feels scary, but it can be a portal to intimacy. And I couldn't agree more. I have so many things to say about this. I once heard intimacy be reframed or described or, rebranded or curated as into me, I see. Into me, I see intimacy. And that just for me, it says it all, but also I want to go deeper. I believe that conflict does allow us an opportunity for deeper intimacy. It also allows us an opportunity to reflect and see what's going on within, right? Even the word intimacy in that reframe, into me, I see. When things come up in our world, we have an opportunity to learn so much about ourselves through our experiences and our relationships with other people. And so when it comes to conflict, how does conflict feel in your world? Do you avoid it at all cost? Do you step away from it? Can you hold space for it? Is it uncomfortable but doable? What stories do you tell yourself about conflict and conflict in relationship? There are many older versions of me where conflict for me was as soon as there was conflict in the relationship, it was oh, this is over. This is done. This is over. I guess this isn't going to be a thing anymore. And that was the story that I told myself, that relationships couldn't hold conflict. And the honest truth, again, the intimacy here is I couldn't hold conflict. I couldn't hold deep conversations. I couldn't hold the discomfort in my body that came up when conflict arose. I couldn't hold the discomfort in my body if a tough conversation had to be held. And so there wasn't a lot of room for conflict. I also had this deep desire to prove my worth. I wasn't aware of my inherent worth and my inherent value in the world. I didn't, I often questioned what my value was in the world. And so it was really hard for me to hold space for myself, to hold space for my discomfort, to hold space for what I was feeling within. Oftentimes I would find a way. It felt like I needed to get that energy out of my body. I didn't want it to be a part of me. I wanted to figure it out. I wanted a resolution and I wanted it now. And the only thing that seemed to be a way to resolve the situation is for it to no longer be. And that's how I operated for a very long time. But now I see conflict or disagreement as a way to learn about the other people that I'm in relationship with, to learn more about myself. What do I believe? What is uncomfortable here? Why is it uncomfortable? Where do I have a hard time holding space for myself? What do I really believe? What in this conflict is rubbing up against this desire to want to be right and validated versus what is actually my truth? What part of this conflict, where can I own my part? Where is my responsibility? And how do I want to lead myself through this? One of my mentors, Melanie Ann Lair, always says, like, create the story or live your life the way that you want to tell it in hindsight. And I've applied this to many things in my life, but especially tough situations. It's like, how do I want to show up here? How do I want to look at this? How do I want to react? What am I going to be proud of? And what is actually moving me forward, allowing me to evolve? I mean, this doesn't mean that I have an expectation of myself that it's always perfect. It's not. There are times where I was like, oh, that didn't go well. Didn't handle that very well. But it's like, where, as many times as I can, where can I take a beat? Where can I take a step back? Where can I not be in my reaction or be in my wounding or be in my trauma and respond from that place? But where can I actually honor my truth? Where can I actually look at what is coming up for me within the conflict? And where can I hold space for what it is that I need in that situation? And what I have noticed is the more I've been able to do that, the more I have not made it me versus them, the more I've not made it a competition, the more I've not made it, or I've not needed validation from other people that I'm right and they're wrong, the more I can hold space for multiple truths, the more I can hold space for the way other people feel, even when it's not my truth, even when it's not the way that I feel. I can hold space for where they're at. I can have compassion. I can listen. I can regulate my nervous system. And I can try to absorb as much information as possible and then decide how I want to move forward. What is true for me in this conflict? What is my truth? What do I really desire? How do I want to move forward? Is there a way to move forward? And if there isn't a way to move forward, then how can I allow what is to just be? How can I allow it to unfold? How can I allow it to dissolve? How can I allow it to shift and ebb and flow, however it needs to be, and just decide then whether or not I'm available for the new version of it? Can I step into conflict knowing that I've got myself no matter what, not in a fighting power over energy, but a power with power to energy? Can I hold space for me? Can I hold space for the other? Can I hold space for the relationship and see how it ebbs and evolves over time? Can I allow it to shift? And can I hold space for my truth amongst it all? My invitation for you today is to consider how you feel about conflict. How do you currently deal with conflict in your life? Why do you deal with conflict in your life that way? For me, a lot of the things that I did were things that were emulated for me, but they weren't really giving me the things that I wanted. Not being able to hold conflict and tough conversations never allowed me to experience what it was like to find resolution with a person that I didn't agree with. And when I started to do that and realized the closeness and the depth that could be created in relationship if I just held my own discomfort, that's where everything started to shift. I started to give myself more evidence for the things that were possible through disagreement, through conflict. I started to realize where I could hear somebody else's opinion that was completely different from mine, completely opposing, that I didn't agree with at all, and just feel, that's interesting. Or I could get curious about why they felt that way and how they'd come to that decision without needing to change it, without needing to explain my point of view, without needing to make them see it my way, but to just hold space for where they were at and for where I was at, and to try and find resolution as best I could. How does that feel for you? How do you feel about conflict? How do you feel about the possibility of resolution? What has that looked like in your life? If you allowed yourself to consider what would feel really good, or maybe at this point it's a dream, what would be the dream scenario? What would I like to create in my life? What would I like it to feel like? What might be possible for you if you learned how to handle your own discomfort? Because that most of the time is what it is that we're working against. Our body, our system gets activated. We have all of this discomfort in our body. Sometimes it sets off this feeling of not being safe or not being protected. And then we try and change the situation, or we use our protective mechanisms in order to create safety again. Maybe that looks like not having the conversation. Maybe that looks like leaving the relationship. Maybe, over time that looks like having the conversation and working into intimacy and depth through disagreement. When we really break it down, all of this has to do with safety within our system. Where can we create and cultivate safety within? Where can we expand our capacity to hold our own discomfort? Where can we expand our capacity to hold the possible disappointment or discomfort that somebody else might bring to the table in their reaction? And how can we allow that to be? Not needing to do anything with it immediately, but just observe it and trust that over time, working through the conflict is actually a gateway to the closeness that we crave. This episode is brought to you by the Sisterhood Dinner Series. The Sisterhood Dinner Series is an event for entrepreneurial women looking for heart-led leadership, like-minded souls where they can come together and share their experiences. Each dinner has a theme, and this April's theme is confidence. What does confidence actually mean? What does it take to be confident or to know who it is that you are? We're going to dive into all of this and more at the next Sisterhood Dinner on April 12th. If you'd like to join us, the link is in the show notes. We'll see you soon. Thank you for listening. It is my absolute honor, pleasure to hold these conversations, to have a space for these transmissions to come through. It is my belief that through these conversations, we start to heal ourselves and send ripples out into the world. I know you are ready for this. I know the world is ready for this. If you are already thinking of someone else who needs to hear this podcast, I would be absolutely honored for you to share it. And if we're not already friends on Instagram, please come find me at Exponential Alchemy. I will see you soon.